Welcome to India New News. Our guest today is America's number one financial advisor and author, Raj Sharma. We are going to talk to him today about his newly published book, which this week has ranked number one in the newly released books in financial services. Raj, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much.
And it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Same here.
And so let's start right away about what really motivated you to write this book.
I've been in the business for over 3 decades, and I've seen a lot of people succeed, but I've seen even greater number of people fail. And my objective was sort of threefold. Number one, to help new advisors succeed, advise with purpose, with intention. Second, to help existing advisors improve their practice, their wealth management practice, their financial planning practice. And number three, the most important thing was I'd love to attract more women and more diverse segments of our society, not just racial, but socioeconomic, into the business. I think the business is underrepresented by women and minorities. And I feel there's an incredible opportunity over the next several decades. There's something going to be $70 trillion of assets, which are going to pass from baby boomers to millennials and Gen Z.
So this is just in the US or worldwide?
Just in the United States. That's a huge amount of wealth. And you need people who can communicate and people who want to build a career. And so I think it's an exciting career for women and minorities. And I think wealth management is good for society.
Sure.
Longer term.
So now, what are some of the key takeaways from the book? Like if I ask you, give me 3 or 4 key points from the book.
The first thing is, when you're building a service business, the most important thing is to be a resource. A lot of people think that if you're a financial services professional, you have to be aggressive, that you have to be a salesman to get accounts. And I think the opposite is true. If you present yourself as a resource, somebody who can help people out, you understand their goals and dreams, I think you're likely to be more successful. The second thing I would say is make sure you have some purpose, which is important. It takes a while to find your purpose.
And that's how the title of your book comes.
Exactly. It's called The Purposeful Wealth Advisor. So my purpose as a financial advisor is to enhance and enrich the lives of our clients, give them peace of mind, and allay their fears and concerns about the long term. So whatever your purpose is, it is important to communicate that effectively. And as an advisor, it's important to do that. Another point I would make is lead with honesty and transparency. It doesn't matter if you don't get a client, but make sure that you are incredibly and radically transparent in everything you do.
Now, off the camera, we're talking about the holistic approach to wealth management. So can you just talk a little more about detail?
Wealth management is a process. So I feel a holistic approach is all about taking care of your clients' life goals, not just financial goals. People may want to retire. They maybe want to be financially independent. Maybe they want to, buy a vacation home. Maybe they want to do philanthropy. So understanding all those elements and creating a financial strategy, which includes, things like asset allocation, tax strategy, estate planning strategy, and philanthropic strategies. So ultimately, the mistake a lot of people make is focus on this business like a transaction. Here's a hard stock, here's a hard idea. That is short term. And I think for long-term investing and building wealth, you need a holistic financial plan.
Yeah. Now, let's talk a little bit about success, for example. How all these things apply, the principle you highlight in the book, to overall success, not necessarily in the wealth management.
Sure.
But these principles can be applied to any other areas of business or family wealth management or other person himself or herself.
Absolutely. I think it applies to, every business, and I'm humble enough to know that I don't know everything, but I'm going to share whatever I know.
Sure.
So my sense is, number one, you need to have a sense of optimism. Optimism doesn't mean you're unrealistic, but you generally have a positive expectation of life in general. And that's important in any business. You're an entrepreneur. You're an entrepreneur because you're trying to solve a problem. So you want to be optimistic. The second thing to realize is you have to treat everybody with respect. Everybody is different. Everybody's unique. And you got to respect those differences, understand those differences. And the third thing you say is, which I believe strongly is, success is not a solo endeavor. It takes a village. And it takes a lot of people. A lot of people over time have packed my parachute, have helped me, who've been mentors in my career. And I think all those factors are important for any kind of business. And finally, I would say that whatever business you're in, your client determines your destiny. You've got to make sure that you understand their objectives and really add true value. And that way you keep the client forever.
Now, when we talk about success, we often fail to talk about the failure.
Yeah.
And at least with my experience in life, I have learned that failure is one of the most fundamental requirements for success. If you have not failed several times, success can be very difficult to achieve. So how do you reconcile these two?
Well, nobody is successful right off the bat. It has taken me 30 years to be an overnight success. So I failed many, many times. And
give us one example of your disastrous failure.
One example of a failure was when I started off in the business. Generally people said that 80% of the people who start enjoying the business leave within the first year. And so there was a high mortality rate in the business. And so it was very tough building a business and not knowing enough people in the community with wealth. And also breaking into a business which has been traditionally very kind of a closed business. Wealth management has been sort of historically been passed from generation to generation. And I came to this country, I didn't know any millionaires. I didn't know any people of wealth. The richest person I knew was my mother, who had a $20,000 401k. And so the first few years were difficult. And then I sort of found my purpose. And I felt my purpose was not to be a salesman, but to be a problem solver. So I became a resource. I would go to hospitals and give seminars. I would go to companies and talk about financial planning and estate planning. But I can think about other failures I've had. Before I started off in the financial business in India, I was involved in a trading stamp company, one of my first ventures in India. And for 2 years, the company did very well. And I was in charge of marketing for the company, not finances. And then the company flamed out. And then I went and got an MBA because once you fail eventually, you say, I've got to learn the basics of business. So certainly I did not succeed in that endeavor, but I learned a lot. And prior to joining Merrill Lynch, I actually was trying to set up a coffee business. Raj Bucks before Starbucks.
Okay.
And I felt the quality of coffee in the United States at that time was very poor. You had Dunkin' Donuts and you had 7-Eleven. And 7-Eleven tasted like vinegar. Right? And I wanted to get cafe latte, the concept of filter coffee, like what we enjoy in India. And I could
especially in South India, the coffee.
And South India coffee, and I'd grown up with that in Hyderabad, and so I imported coffee and I got the filters and test groups, but I was not able to raise the capital. All I needed was $100,000 of capital.
And which year was that?
1987.
1987.
And venture capitalists were not that adventurous. We didn't have the kind of entrepreneurship we have today.
And venture capital was just starting at that time.
It was just starting at that time.
It was basically close to the immigrants.
Exactly. Exactly. And so then I said, let me reboot myself. And I wanted to, I was in the communications field for 7 to 8 years, which I really enjoyed. But I wanted to be more of an entrepreneur. And I found wealth management to be a conduit where you can own your own practice, It's very much like having a business and a practice within a large firm.
So now, focusing on wealth management, you have also very nicely focused on philanthropy, and you are very active with a lot of nonprofit organizations, including some youth groups. So how that happened and how that has been helpful in your business?
Sure. I mean, I've studied other entrepreneurs who are philanthropic. I've studied philanthropists. And I believe, like many others do, I'm sure you do, that it is often more gratifying to give than receive.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, philanthropy was about gratitude. We've all done it well in life. We were born on the right side of the tracks. We had the right parents, we had the right education, right values. But so many people are not as fortunate. So I wanted to get involved, and I was fortunate to be involved with the American India Foundation. And,
I remember very well, you held in Boston the first AIF event.
yes.
I attended that. And ever since, I have not missed a single AIF event in Boston. Record.
Absolutely. And you've been a great advocate and supporter, and I thank you for that. So AIF was all about disrupting poverty in India.
Hmm.
And growing up in India, you see a lot of poverty. And I felt it's important for us to share best practices, help women, children, and young people out in India, the lowest rung of society economically. And then I also realized that America is my home.
Mm-hmm.
This is where I'm going to live.
Absolutely.
And die.
Children are going to live here.
And we're going to be here. And it's important to get involved with the community, to help the local community. So we got involved in an organization in Sharon called Youth Lead many years ago, which is all about young people and leadership programs. And they help young people sort of disagree with being disagreeable, involve them in various kinds of leadership programs over time. So that's been gratifying. Now, that organization is now part of Emerson College.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually done well. It's part of a larger enterprise.
And you attended Emerson College as well.
I did. I did my master's from Emerson. So at Emerson.
So even from coffee, you also went to communications.
Communications, yeah. And so it was communications first. Coffee was my foray into entrepreneurship. And so Emerson was a great experience. And about 5-6 years ago, I was approached by them to become a trustee of the school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a trustee of the school where I interact with a lot of young people, try to shape Emerson into a national institution.
Okay. Now, as we come closer towards the end of our interview, I want to get back to the book as well. And you said that there are going to be huge career opportunities in finance and planning given the growing wealth. What are some of the advice you would give to a young kid who is just graduating from university or college when it comes to the financial and wealth planning?
Absolutely. I would say, when people say I want to be in finance, and most people think of finance as private equity or investment banking. And wealth management is not as much understood. So with wealth management, what you have is not a job, but a business. You are like an internal medicine doctor building a practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a very satisfying career where you have a lot of independence. You have a lot of potential financially rewarding. But at the same time, I think there's something so gratifying about helping another person accomplish their goals. Mm-hmm. So just like a doctor treating their patients and making sure they're healthy, as a financial advisor, you want to make sure that you're taking care of the welfare of your clients.
So now also you have wealth management, and also you have a wealth builders, because there's somebody who is building the wealth.
Right.
And are these two skills different, or there is some commonality?
I think they're connected. I mean, one of the reasons I feel people of color, women, and minorities should consider this profession is wealth management, in my opinion, is great for society. Understanding wealth management leads to wealth creation. So it can have an impact on your overall community in a dramatic way. But to answer your question, building wealth. Everybody wants to build wealth, but you need a plan. People don't plan to fail, but they fail to plan.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a strategy, in terms of your budget, in terms of asset allocation, and look at it very dispassionately. Your goals on the long term, what are your short-term goals, long-term goals, how are you going to accomplish them? So you need a strategy. And you can do it on your own. Or you can use an advisor, somebody who can be your partner in your financial journey.
Now, since we have touched so many topics, towards the end, I'm going to ask you few things, and just whatever word comes to your mind, just say that what it really means for you. It's a surprise one. I didn't tell you that.
No problem. I'm good for surprises.
Okay. So the first one is success. What comes to your mind?
Happiness.
Failure,
Determination.
romance,
It's about making other people happy.
philanthropy,
It's about, giving and the aspect of giving, and which I believe is much more gratifying than making money.
entrepreneurship,
Entrepreneurship is problem solving, finding a problem, coming up with a set of solutions or a product.
wealth management.
Wealth management is all about peace of mind.
Raj, thank you very much.
My pleasure, my friend.
Excellent. Thank you so much.